What's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. So today we are doing the Champions Report on the IBF, the International Boxing Federation, and we're going to look at all championships from 122 all the way to heavyweight, all those 12 divisions. Before we get into that, if you guys could smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I try to build my channel up here. So, for the IBF, and also, if you guys don't like what I'm doing, you can always leave me a thumbs down or leave a comment letting me know why you don't like what I'm doing. But before we get into all that, I mean, you know, all that being said, let's get into the IBF. So, with my champions reports, I do them every 2 months at the end of every even month. So, end of June here, so we're at the halfway point on the year. I give news and updates on all the titles and the champions holding those titles in each division. So let's kick it off with the 122-pound super bantamweight division. The champion there is Marlon Taplis. Taplis captured his title in early April when he scored an upset 12-round split decision over Murajan Akhmadaliyev, or MJ. And Taplis became the IBF and WBA unified champ with that victory. So, Taplis, what we do know is that it was already being rumored that Taplis, you know, would be in line potentially to fight the winner of Stephen Fulton Jr. and Neo Inoue, the Monster, as they collide on July 25th. But the WBA opened that door up completely because the WBA said that if Taplis wanted to go for undisputed against the winner of that fight, that he would be allowed to without having to make his obligation of his mandatory WBA defense. You see, Taplis was the IBF mandatory, so that mandatory is not due, but the WBA's is due next. But in order to fight for undisputed, they are allowing Taplis to fight the winner of Fulton and Inoue later in the year if that's what he wants to do. Likely going to be what happens, especially if it's Neo Inoue. He'll probably get Inoue in the ring in December. But we got to see what happens on July 25th. First, hopefully we know a little bit more. I don't know if it'll be finalized, but at least we'll know a little bit more by the next Champions Report at the end of August. 126 featherweight. The reigning champion there is Luis Alberto Lopez, who successfully defended his title in May when he scored a brutal 5th round knockout over Michael Conlan as he went into Michael Conlan's country, a home country of Ireland, and scored a monster uppercut 5th round knockout to retain his title in a fight that many people picked Conlan, myself included, and he just continues to impress and shut everybody down. There hasn't been any concrete talks about what Lopez is doing next. Now, he is technically in mandatory mode, and that would mean he would probably face his number one. I forget the guy's name exactly, but there's a Japanese fighter who defeated Kiko Martinez, the former champ. He defeated him earlier this year, so he is the number one contender right now in the IBF. So I'm thinking Lopez might have to make that mandatory obligation next. The other options are Joet Gonzalez, who's called out Lopez already, and I think that would just be a barn burner right there, a total just war. And then the other option is potential unification with Robesai Ramirez, who is the WBO champion right now. What I think Bob Arum might do is have both these guys fight their mandatories before the end of the year to clear the path completely for a unification bout, because both guys are under the top ranked banner. So I'm going to lean towards Lopez to fight the Japanese guy. I think his last name is Abe, and fight him next. And then with Joet Gonzalez being the number one contender in the WBO, let Robesai Ramirez fight Joet Gonzalez next before the end of the year, and then these two guys lock horns. But we'll see what goes down. Hopefully by the next Champions Report we have a little bit more news on what Lopez is going to do next with the featherweight title. 130 super featherweight, the reigning and undefeated champion there is Joe Cordina. Cordina regained his title in April when he scored a split decision victory in a great fight over Shavkat Rakhimov. There hasn't been any concrete talks about one fight in particular. We know that Zelfa Barrett is the likely front runner to land the fight, but there was also talks going on of Cordina and Oshaki Foster unifying belts, because Foster is a promotional free agent right now, but Foster has poured water on that fire a little bit, saying that he doesn't think Cordina wants to fight him. I personally feel, since Cordina's in optional mode, that you're probably going to see him fight Zelfa Barrett next. But, you know, we don't know. Zelfa Barrett can pose a difficult matchup, but they're both under the Matchroom banner, and it's an easy fight to make, and they're both from the United Kingdom, so it would make some money for both guys to fight each other. I think that's what he's probably going to do. Barrett did fight on his undercard when he fought Rakhimov. Barrett fought on the undercard and shook off the loss to Rakhimov last year. So I personally feel that's what's going to happen, but hopefully we know more by the next Champions Report. 135 lightweight, the reigning IBF and undisputed champion is the undefeated Devin Haney of the United States. Haney in May defended all 4 of his titles against Vasily Lomachenko on ESPN pay-per-view and scored the biggest victory of his career, albeit a controversial unanimous decision over Lomachenko. A lot of people thought he lost that fight, myself included. Right now, for Devin Haney to stay at lightweight, there's basically 3 options on the table overall. The first option is that he's going to move up to 140, junior welterweight, something he's been talking about for a while. There's been talks that there's a lot of interest in Haney fighting Regis Prograis, who's the 140-pound WBC champion. You know, especially after the way Prograis looked in his last fight, it wasn't great, so it might be more likely that he wins that fight or has a better chance than originally expected. I think that's an option. Depends on what kind of offer Eddie Hearn with Matchroom is going to offer him, so we'll see. But the other options are potentially a monster showdown with Tank Davis at 135. And the other option would be a big-time rematch with Vasily Lomachenko, also at 135. Those are the only 2 options, in my opinion, I think will allow him to stay at 135, which means hold on to the IBF title. We really don't know, though, which direction he's leaning in thus far. I don't think the Tank Davis fight happens. And right now, I'm kind of 50-50 on the Lomachenko fight. I don't think he really wants the rematch, but I think he might take it just to make some more money and shut a lot of people up, or try to at least. But there's definitely interest in him moving to 140. So we just got to see who gets on board and offers him the biggest fight. I think potentially a Teofimo Lopez fight could happen too. But honestly, I don't think either side right now wants that fight, but it could happen. So we'll see. Hopefully by the next Champions Report, we have some kind of idea of what's going to happen next. If Haney gives up this belt, then undefeated Gustavo Lemos is next in line to fight for the vacant title. So we'll see what goes down. 140 junior welterweight. The champion there is Subriel Matias. Matias captured his title back in February when he stopped Jeremiah Ponce, and he's looking to make his first defense of the title in late August on Showtime against former champion Sergey Lipinets. This is a big fight for Matias. In my opinion, it would be the biggest fight on his resume if he's victorious. Lipinets isn't a joke. Lipinets last year came back down to 140, dominated Omar Figueroa Jr., and now has his sights set on becoming a world champion again at 140, where that was where he was at his best. He did okay at welterweight, but at 140 he was solid and very good, and I think this is a big fight for Matias right here. If the fight takes place in August, I think Matias is going to stop Lipinets in the late rounds, but don't count out the veteran Lipinets. That's a good matchup for Matias, but I'm picking him to win that fight if indeed that fight does happen as it has been planned. 147 welterweight. The reigning undefeated and unified champion there is Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence also holds the WBC and the WBA Super titles at welterweight. And now Errol Spence Jr. has a chance to prove if he is the best welterweight in the world and potentially pound for pound the best fighter in the world when he takes on the undefeated WBO champion Terrence Bud Crawford for the undisputed welterweight championship of the world. This is a monster fight right here. It's taking place Saturday, July 29th on Showtime pay-per-view. And these two guys have an automatic rematch clause in the contract for the loser. This is a big fight. I think Errol can win the fight, but I don't think he's going to win the fight. I think Terrence Crawford is just on another level than Errol is, and I think Crawford's going to bust him up and either stop him in the late rounds, or I think he's going to take a decision. But I do think Errol will follow through with the rematch later in the year for sure, just to leave no doubt and all that. But at least for now, this fight's taking place Saturday, July 29th, and I got Crawford as your next IBF welterweight champion and next undisputed welterweight champion of the world. After this, this belt might go vacant and Jerome Boots Ennis might be upgraded to champion. So after this initial fight between the two, the winner might not care about holding on to the undisputed title and all 4 belts through the end of the year. He might give up the IBF belt because Jerome Boots Ennis is next and he's the interim champ. He's going to get upgraded to full champion if he gets through Romain Villa on July 8th. And we could be talking about Boots Ennis and what he's doing next as IBF champion come the next Champions Report at the end of August. So we'll see. 154 super welterweight, the reigning and undisputed champion there is Jermell Charlo of the United States. Charlo, we know he's put off his WBO mandatory defense because of an injury since January of this year. He's supposed to fight undefeated WBO interim champion Tim Tszyu. Now the WBO ordered Charlo to fight Tim Tszyu by September. Right now it looks like that fight could be taking place in October. And Charlo would defend all 4 belts that way. But after that fight, if that fight happens, which I do think it will, we got to see what happens after that. But that fight should not take place before the next Champions Report. Charlo should hold on to the title. I'm just hoping by the end of by the end of August, we have that fight signed, sealed, and delivered for the undisputed title in either September or October between Charlo and Tszyu. We'll keep you posted. 160 middleweight. The title right now is still vacant, but this Saturday on, actually, I don't think it's on an American television broadcast because it was lost, but the vacant title fight between undefeated Esquiva Falcao and Italian Vicente Gualtieri is taking place. I personally feel that Falcao is going to win this fight and become your next champion, and then we could potentially be looking at a unification bout. We could be talking about a unification bout by the end of the next Champions Report. So keep yourself posted. Should be good and interesting to see what happens here between these two guys on July 1st. I think Falcao is going to win it by a late stoppage or a decision and become the next IBF middleweight champion of the world at 160. We'll see. 168 super middleweight, the reigning IBF and undisputed champion there is Saul Canelo Alvarez. Well, Canelo fought in May, successfully defended all 4 of his belts with a dominating one-sided unanimous decision win over John Ryder, busted Ryder's nose, knocked him down a couple times, and retained his undisputed title. Now, Canelo has signed a 3-fight deal with the PBC and Showtime, and the first fight is supposedly going to be against Jermell Charlo in September for the undisputed super middleweight title. That hasn't been confirmed yet, but that's the way it's looking. They should be finalizing that any day now. So by the next Champions Report, I should be giving my prediction on Canelo and Charlo, or whoever maybe gets the Canelo fight heading into September. 175 light heavyweight, the reigning IBF and undefeated unified champion is Arthur Beterbiev. He also holds the WBC and WBO light heavyweight titles. Beterbiev is returning on August 19th in the main event of an ESPN card when he makes a WBC mandatory defense against Callum Smith, the former super middleweight champion. This is going to be a better fight than people are giving it credit. I really can't wait to see this fight. I think Beterbiev and Smith is going to be a barn burner. Smith, if you're writing him off, I think he might be more dangerous to Beterbiev than even Anthony Yarde was. And I told everybody that Anthony Yarde was dangerous, and he did very well against Beterbiev before Beterbiev stopped him. I think Callum Smith has the potential to do that. He's bigger, he's taller, and he has shown power since moving up to 175. I think it's going to be a competitive bout, but I do believe Beterbiev will break him down and stop him in the late rounds. But don't be surprised if Callum Smith is your new IBF light heavyweight champion of the world by the next Champions Report. Remember, August 19th on ESPN, Beterbiev and Smith. 200 cruiserweight. The reigning champion there is the undefeated Jai Opetaia. Opetaia was supposed to be fighting 37-year-old Mateusz Masternak in a mandatory title defense, but Masternak decided to pull out of the purse bid for that fight. Opetaia needed to have a purse bid. He was injured, and he got an extension through June, and he was ready, though, by June to make a mandatory defense against Masternak. They just had the fight going to purse bid, and he pulled himself out. Masternak did. So now Opetaia has been ordered to defend his title against Englishman Richard Riakporhe. That's setting up a big fight right there for Opetaia, absolutely, because Riakporhe is a pretty solid cruiserweight. But it's also setting up a potential unification bout against a potential winner of Chris Billum-Smith and Mateusz Masternak that's taking place later this year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Opetaia and Riakporhe. By the next Champions Report, we should know when that fight is going to take place. So make sure you pay attention. And then the heavyweight title for the IBF is currently held by the undefeated, reigning and unified champion Oleksandr Usyk, who also holds the WBA Super and the WBO heavyweight titles along with the IBF. Usyk is going to return Saturday, August 26th from Poland when he makes a WBA mandatory defense against the WBA regular champion Daniel Dubois of the United Kingdom. This is a big fight right here between these two guys, two top 10 heavyweights. Usyk obviously number 2 at heavyweight, and I think Usyk wants that undisputed title fight with Tyson Fury. I think he's focused. I think he's ready. I think he's going to beat Daniel Dubois, but don't count Dubois out. Dubois packs a big punch, and I think he's going to be in this fight, but I see Usyk breaking him down, stopping him in the late rounds, or scoring a convincing unanimous decision to retain all 3 belts, but it should be good. So that's it. That's what I got. A lot going on for the IBF in the next couple months, so make sure you're paying attention to some of these title fights because I'm really looking forward to them. And that's all I got. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is the IBF Champions Report. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.